One of the most amazing Belgian forts from the Second World War is Fort Aubin. Over the past 2 episodes, we've gone through the fort and talked about its amazing history and battle history of the Second World War in those frightful opening days. Today, the fort is taken care of by an army of volunteers that are doing their best to restore it and bring history back to life and keep it alive. Besides the fort itself, they also have set up a small museum dedicated to the Second World War, to the soldiers who fought there and their commander. Also, they have letters, personal artifacts, uniforms, and all the other things that could salvage from the fort and around it on exhibit here, and I wanted to take you through a quick visit of the museum and introduce you to its current commander, Thomas.
This museum was a small part of a trench of the First World War. Why? That's the explication of the building of the fortress here in Aubin Chateau. The remains of the First World War. The situation in Europe was so complicated with Germany, France, Belgium. So the Belgian government decided to build some four new fortresses in Belgium, like Aubin Chateau, Eben-Emal, Bâtisse and Tancremont. So to start a visit, we made a reproduction of a small trench to put the visitors inside the feeling of the end of the First World War. We put a copy of a uniform of the end of the First World War to show to the visitors how did they look at this time.
And you had your own helmets all the way through. You didn't wear the British helmets here.
No, not for the moment. In every city of small villages, in memory of the soldiers of the First World War who died or not between 1914 and 1918. And just after the First World War, we had in Belgium and in Europe fascism, Nazism, and especially in Belgium, this sort of politic Rexisme in French,
Yes.
Catholic. And during the war, they fought with the Germans' army. Just before the Second World War, in Belgium, the soldiers were called to make the French service militaire conscription. So we put inside the cabinets some material of the soldier, books, letters, insignias, photos, pictures. So you've got a small panel of material and things about Belgian soldiers before the Second World War. And now we can enter inside the fort properly. A cabinet with shelves fired here at Aubin Chateau with fuse.
So you have the canister rounds.
Yeah.
The canister, 75 millimeter.
Yeah, 75. And here 206 small bullets inside.
Canister.
Yeah, canister
Canister
shells,
round, yeah.
216.
That was very useful against Germans during the attack of the fortress. We've got weapons, guns that were used in the fortress for Aubin Chateau, like the submachine gun Maxim, light submachine gun from the National Fabric in Herstal, Liège, anti-tank shells, 47 millimeters, grenades, carbine, pistol, munitions, and all small materials like books. At this time we had a lot of colors, especially for the helmets and this sort of garrison caps. Red for infantry, blue for artillery, black, yellow, white, silver, gold, all a panel of colors for the uniforms. That was very special but interesting. At the beginning of the fortress, many lamps like those, about 860 lamps like those, to light all the galleries, the rooms. And we've got all small material, keys, coming from our fort. And there, mortar ammunitions It's quite special, like for this.
Because it's breech loaded. It's not dropped down the end of the tube.
You can see it only here at Aubin-le-Château or Torquemont. And here we've got a big panel of different uniforms of the Belgian army between 1930 with this gala uniform, ceremony uniform, and the end a uniform for an officer during the fightings of 1940. This is in war.
Yeah, I know.
And in May 1940 it was too hot to wear. Working soldiers.
I will say that does look comfortable. It's not wool. I will say anything that's not wool looks comfortable.
No. Before the war, the soldiers were located in peacetime barracks on the ground, here, near here. We made a diorama with the inside of a chamber, a room for soldiers. We had normally 7 or 8 beds next
To each other.
next to each other, with a table to can play with cards, to drink a small beer. The chamber normally were like this one. We have the commander office in the peacetime barracks. The commander was a commandant, artillery commandant, called Oscar Dardenne. He commanded the fortress between 1936 and the fightings in 1940. He became an artillery officer during the 20s or beginning of 30s. He came here at Aubin because he lived near here. He was quite a good commandant for the troop, for the soldiers. He was like a grandfather for his soldiers. That's what I heard. And after the war, he died in 1968. So he didn't know the beginning of the committee here, with the new museum and with the
How long has the museum existed?
1978. And his wife came till 1982. So outside post called, okay, we've got 60 Germans at the railway station. You should fire to destroy the column of Germans. This man, of another officer like on this picture, say, okay, we calculate where we should fire, and then this man take the telephone and say to the cupola, B1 or B2, 75 millimeters, okay, you fire 60 rounds to this location, railway station of Liège, for instance. And then in 2 or 3 minutes, from the first calling to the firing of the cupolas, we had 2 or 3 minutes only. That was very quick. I had the son of this officer who came here a few months ago to give us some pictures. I found the son of the Lieutenant Maréchal, who was the surgeon of the fortress during the fightings in 1940. He gave us some documents, some pictures of his father. His father unfortunately died in 1963, so he didn't know the museum and the committee just after the war. Letters from this officer, Lieutenant Maréchal, and pictures who show rooms in the galleries or in the peacetime barracks just here. The Belgians didn't fight alone, so we've got some material and a copy of uniform, a German uniform, to show to the visitors how did they looked.
The backpack is interesting.
Yeah, with a cowhide. This backpack comes from directly here from the village. Has been stolen by a young boy in the village. We've got the name of the soldiers just behind, written inside the backpack. He stole the backpack during the fightings here around the fortress, inside the farm where we lived.
Really?
And he gave us to the museum a few years ago, so we put it in the cabinet. So the Belgian soldiers, just after the fighting in the fortress, go to Germany. They were prisoners by the Germans, so we made a diorama of the stalag, Stammlager
J'ai reçu cette semaine
with the Belgian prisoners,
un colis de ma
Belgian
marine
or French,
en très bon état.
etc. But here especially soldiers from the
L'année
Belgian
dernière
fortress.
et hier, toute la
And we
journée,
made
il a plu et puis neigé
audio,
très fort. Il y a encore 20
original
centimètres
letters
pour le
from
moment.
soldiers
Le
of
soleil
Aubin
est
et Château.
apparu.
When were the soldiers released?
In
Germans.
1945.
They'd said all the time.
Ici,
And
clairement,
King Leopold, he tried to get them released. He went to see Hitler.
Flemish-speaking prisoners were liberated end of 1940, beginning 1941 or 1942. But the main of the Belgian soldiers from here in the fortress or everywhere in Belgium were liberated in 1945, after 5 years in Germany.
Did any of them die in captivity?
Yeah. Here we had 7 killed during the fightings in the fortress, but many during the captivity.
Work or nutrition, or do you know why?
Everything.
Everything.
And some soldiers died just after coming back in Belgium.
Yeah.
Souvenirs, medals, pictures, letters, documents. So I'm proud to show to people all those things.
That's a special thing.
Very special. Because we only have this one in Belgium at Aubin et Château and Baptiste. Here we've got the Röchling grenade, very special weapon made by the Germans in 1942 approximately, fired in test at Aubin et Château and Baptiste in Belgium between 1942 and 1943, approximately between 300 and 600 weapons fired on the fortress to test the Röchling grenade. So you can have a look on the head of this weapon, very special, to can reach by the concrete, the earth and everything, the galleries down, 30 meters down, and to explode inside the galleries.
And this was in 1943 already.
Yeah, end of 1942, beginning of 1943.
What were they fired from?
Here, in the area, from railway gun or special gun, campaign gun, simply.
Because, so these are non-calibrated.
Yeah, you had some 2 rings around the shelf. At the end of the tube of the gun, the rings go back and this shelf go alone in the air and go directly down to reach the target.
So it goes altitude and then comes down from altitude like a rocket.
And just when he climbed and go down to reach the fortress, the speed is very high. That's the reason why he can reach the gallery 30 meters down. And we still find remains of the Röchling grenades in the area here, because the Germans, I said, fired between 3 and 600 shells at Aubin et Château.
And this is something you will not find anywhere else on the planet. You will not see these anywhere.
Only in Belgium at Aubin and in Czech Republic. Normally, the Americans brought the system to ameliorate the shelf and still in use now.
And these you dug out of the fort?
Those 2 inside the fortress and the small remains here around the fortress, outside.
So what, this is not tungsten, what is it?
Yeah, tungsten.
Is this tungsten?
Yeah. A mix of tungsten and other steel, I don't know exactly, it's very special. As you see, with concrete, metal, the head is very clean, intact. It's cut, so it's a half Röchling grenade, but the head is very intact. It's the end of the Röchling grenade.
That's the end?
Yeah, and normally we've got a small engine, a small motor, small jet in this part. And often, or quite always, the jet were recuperated by the Germans.
So this was fired as a shell and then the rocket...
Yeah.
Wow.
When the Germans tested those shells inside the fortress around, all the villages was evacuated. The citizen couldn't stay here in the village because it was very secret. And the Feldgendarmerie came at the evening knock at the door, nobody is here, okay, all is fine. We can test the Wrestling grenade.
Of course, also getting people out of the village, because if they missed, and
It's also the other thing.
the other thing, yeah.
Because at the beginning, that wasn't, the German couldn't have a precision with the Wrestling. So we've got maybe many Wrestling around the fortress. With the last uniform of the commander of the fortress, Lieutenant Colonel Darden, who commanded the fortress in 1940. His wife gave the uniform in 1978 at the beginning of the old museum. And especially campaign diaries written by the Commodore Dardenne. And we can read Tuesday, 14 May 1940. Right cupola B1 says submachine gun inside old peacetime barracks. A submachine gun from a soldier Baumsteiger injured a German soldier. We've got many informations about the fighting.
That's what you sent me a copy of, right?
Yeah, the battle.
And you got an original document written by the German commander, that says Commandant Dardenne gave the rendition of the fortress. At the liberation of the village in September 1944, we had this battalion, tank battalion, Daredevil.
Yeah.
They stayed in the village from the liberation in September 1944 to the beginning of the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944. During this time, they stayed in the village, in the houses. So I wanted to show American material in the memory of the US soldiers. Those 5 cabinets remains found in the fortress between the end of the war and now. Cards. I found many objects here in the cabinets myself. So for shelves, ammunition box in wood. Many things. Water bottles, milk bottles, beer bottles, cards. They are still alive.
Of course.
Electricity material. Why 2 graves? Simply, the right grave is a soldier of the fortress. He died with a German bullet outside the fortress. And the German soldiers died with shells of the fortress. So the symbolic now in Europe, Germany, Belgium, we are friends. We should work together. So we put 2 graves for the symbolic of the end of the war. We shouldn't have another war between us. So it's more symbolic to end the visit of the museum.
There's no shortage of amazing battlefields and forts for me to show you, but this is one I did not want you to miss the story of. See you next week.